high level, if you step back and look where the United States is and where they've come, I think that there's been a wake-up call across the board in the United States regarding that the threat's real. Before, it was those geeks that worked at that company that dealt with something that might be a threat, and they're asking their bosses for more money. But when you have more and more companies coming out publicly, you have EMC a year and a half ago, RSA, being very public, and being a publicly traded company, they decided to, through the SEC, file documentation and let them know what happened to them. I think that's started a new standard, though not necessarily required, but a new standard amongst publicly traded companies. So that's up the game a bit to the C-level, to the chief counsel, to chief compliance officers, et cetera, that are now saying, whoa, what is it you CISOs do? What is it you geeks do? And that can really hit us from a risk, threat, vulnerability standpoint. So a lot of companies now are starting to bake that into a compliance framework. Some of them are regulated to do that, HIPAA, healthcare regulations, Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX regulations, et cetera. So we've moved from this regulated environment, and regulations, in my mind, are never really forward-thinking. They're always reactive to a set of issues that happen. It takes a while for Congress to act, not negative or positive, just the reality of the game. Once they act, they pass, and then regulations get passed. So, good year, that's plus 1 or 2 years for laws to get passed and signed by the president. Regulations get promulgated and out the door within 6 months to a year after that. You're talking a 3-year window. So much badness can happen between that 3-year window that legislation, unfortunately, when it hits the streets, is not relevant. So where are we today? Unfortunately, as a 501c3, I cannot comment on current legislation. We're just not permitted to do that. But I think the perspective is at least it's in the national debate. The current president, President Obama, saw fit to, in his appointment of many czars and czarinas, saw fit to appoint cyber czar, who unfortunately recently resigned. He's been there a couple of years. But to get it up to that presidential or that White House level, he also took it up to another level, convened a policy working group, and had that group do a 60-day review once he got into office and make some cyber recommendations. That followed by a lot of well-publicized hacks, Sony, RSA, et cetera, Google coming public with what happened to them, and others, has really upped it in the national debate. The catch-22 is it's great that it's upped in the national debate, but you don't want knee-jerk legislative reaction from Washington, D.C. So having an educated debate on that and having the right folks testify and make sure the leadership of the country is up to date on that, both from a government standpoint, government agency standpoint, in testifying, as well as relevant outside experts testifying, that needs to take place. We've had a couple bills in the last couple of years. They look to be pulling into an omnibus bill, a very large bill, and it looks that finally we're this week going to get some of those needed discourse and hearings related to what's going on. So TBD, I guess, is my answer to you. So.